A young man named Reget's Era leaves the fields where he happened to be doing some work and runs into the house with a piece of paper to show his older brother Rigart's arrow. On the other hand, his brother leaves him and hurriedly runs away with a promise to bring him souvenirs from the capital. Reget stands at the entrance of their house in anger as Rigart runs away from the duty that they are supposed to share. The brothers are residents of Cruzan, a continent where oil is not found in the land. The people of the land are born with the ability to freely control quartz. The people are empowered with varying degrees of power to use quartz and can use it to control several objects around them. Rigart falls from exhaustion on his way to the capital, and he begins to envision his father. There he sees himself as a little boy of 5 and his father in a room surrounded by little gems. 3 human forms were talking to his father, and in the conversation, they inform his father that he is lacking an ability that even 2-year-olds possess, so that makes him an unsorcerer. Rigart slowly regains consciousness, and Balder, a general of the Krishna kingdom, arrives at his side. He informs Rigart that King Hodder summons him. Rigart requests for water, and after drinking it, he regains his strength to converse with Balder. Balder comments that Rigart is the first person he has seen in his entire life that is unable to use quartz, but he apologizes for saying it to Rigart's face. Rigart does not get angry at Balder because he is used to such comments. Meanwhile, the invading soldiers from Athens are in a serious battle with the Krishna soldiers. Each side has robot-looking creatures and foot soldiers in the battle. They shot aggressively at each other, and as the battle continued, they retreated their human soldiers so that the robot creatures and the machines will continue. After some time on the battlefield, the Athens soldiers retreat all their men to regroup against the Krishna army. Balder takes Rigart to the city's capital on his enormous bike. Rigart excitedly looks around the place on their way to the capital. Balder asks him if it is his first time in the capital, but he informs the general that he visited with his father as a kid. King Hodder and his wife Queen Sigyn are longtime friends with Rigart from their school days. Rigart arrives at the palace and Queen Sigyn ambushes him because he missed her wedding to King Hodder and accuses him of being a bad best friend. Rigart apologizes to her that he was busy with the harvest, and they reunite with each other after 4 years. Queen Sigyn and Balder lead Rigart into King Hodder's presence, and they reunite with the banter. Rigart recounts everyone's behavior at military school and asks about their 4 friends, eldest. Everyone becomes quiet, and Queen Sigyn explains that there has been a fight with Athens which has grown stronger than what they can control. Zes, who is from Athens, has sided with his people as the captain of the squad against their kingdom. Rigart slowly processes the news and realizes what they are up against because Athens is stronger than Krishna, and the king demands his help. He takes Rigart to see an ancient golem which may give them a chance in the fight with Athens, but only an unsorcerer like Rigart can use the ancient golem. King Hodder pleads with Rigart to help them because Athens demands that they surrender, and they have also threatened to execute the royal family including Queen Sigyn. Just then, Athens commences an attack on them and Hodder is taken to safety. The Athenian soldiers find King Hodder, and just when they were about to attack him, Rigart powers the ancient golem. Rigart struggles with commanding the ancient golem because of the complicated keys, and the Athenians wonder if it is a new model. The golem goes up into the sky and crashes in front of the Athenian soldier's golem. The Athenian golem operator tries to figure out the charisma model, but she is unable to do so. She decides to shoot it out with the charisma golem, but Rigart has other plans. Even though he has a lousy knowledge of how to operate the golem, he tries to remember the commands he used in operating it from where it was to where it is currently. With that knowledge, Rigart controls the golem to fight back. The Athenian golem begins to shoot rapidly at Rigart's golem, but his golem rises to its full height, and he controls it to crash into the Athenian golem. Rigart did not let go till he has the Athenian golem on the hard wall. Rigart looks for the control panel to move his golem, but he continues to use the wrong keys. After shuttling around for a while, he picks the sword to go after the Athenians, but as he fiddles with the keys to instruct the golem again, Zes arrives in his golem. He shoots Rigart's golem rapidly and it falls heavily to the ground. King Hodder realizes that Zes is the control and begs him to stop because Rigart is inside. His hand stops on the trigger and he accuses King Hodder of lying to buy time. He vows to apprehend him and his men, but Hodder pleads with him. Zes tells Hodder that Rigart is unable to operate a golem. He remembers their time in school together. On that day, he had an argument with Rigart because he decided school and Hodder separated them. He remembers the different times they spent together in school. Inside the golem, Rigart tries to talk, but nobody hears him because he does not know how to activate the function to help him communicate. Rigart continues to talk, begging Zes to stop the attack, but everyone is unable to hear him. Zes starts to shoot at him, and he tries to dodge. Just then, General Balder and his men arrive, and they shield King Hodder to safety. Balder uses his shield, and they pursue Zes to retreat. Zes reports to his squad to retreat because he has failed, and they begin to exit. Balder orders his squad not to make needless pursuits as the safety of the king is their concern, and they began to head home. Queen Sigyn meets them on the way to ensure Zigart's safety, and he begins to tell her about the golem since she was researching it before his arrival. Zess returns to his camp with Li and Cleo. Li sends Cleo to relieve Argath from scouting duty, and she discusses the odd golem from Kisna with Zess. At the workshop, Queen Sigyn and her employees work tirelessly on the ancient golem, but it refuses to respond to them. She asked Rigard for a report on how they operated it, and she realized that everything he described has surpassed what the modern golem can do. Zess regroups with his people and plans to destroy at least 20 golems belonging to Krishna so that they can get harder to surrender. But Rigard offers to talk with him, and the ancient golem responds to him, which surprises Sigyn and her team. After he left, Sigyn wonders if those of them that can use magic are not true descendants, since it has never responded to them before. The Athenian golems are ruthless in their continuous attacks. They are neither taking breaks nor giving the Krishna soldiers and golems time to take breaks, as they go at them fiercely. Bainanton is the capital of Krishna. They pride themselves in mining the greatest amount of reactive quartz on the continent. Overall, Krishna is a kingdom that is blessed with abundance, but that abundance will soon be taken away from them with the attack that the Athenians have in store for them. Aside from the other units, Zess and his unit of 5 launch a surprise attack on Bainanton, which is Krishna's stronghold. A Secretary of War, Loquis, and his council members sat to analyze the report of war while their men were on the field. In their deliberation, Li walks in and apologizes for interrupting them. She reports the status of their mission, and the council members acknowledged it as progress. However, Loquis is displeased with Zess for taking matters into his hands. The Krishna soldiers' response is surprisingly fast, considering that Zess attacked them without notice. General Balder rallied his army under strict instruction to protect the capital and resist every attack from the Athenian golems. And even if anyone enters the capital, they were to be defeated instantly. But General True, another person of the same rank as General Balder, decides to use his plans because he feels General Balder's actions are cowardly. Zess continues to dish out instructions to his soldiers, and they actively engage from all sides. They double up their efforts after seeing that the Krishna forces have responded to their attacks. A while later, a lone Krishna golem approaches Zess' base, and one of his men reports that the golem is approaching under a flag for a negotiation. He reads out the code-like message held by the golem to Zess, and Zess took off to meet the lone golem. Zess recognizes the lone golem as Rigard even before leaving his base. They both meet in the middle and see each other for the first time in 4 years, but there was no happy reunion. Instead, they both began to argue over who should retreat and who should surrender. Zess orders Rigard to go back and make King Harder see reasons why he should surrender because he does not even want the throne, so it would not hurt him. Deep down, Zess hopes that Rigard will yield and go back because he does not want to shoot him. General True and his army approach from the west while Balder stands down from the Queen's order to watch the bargain. Rigard sees the approach and thinks that Rigard was sent to buy time, so he began to fire while hoping that Rigard is unhurt. General True's squad begins to fire at the Athenian golems, and they return fire. They soon start to overpower General True and his men, and after an inner battle with his pride, he tells his men to retreat. From a distance, Queen Sigyn sees all that is unrevealing and becomes scared for her dear friend Rigard, who has only a makeshift body armor to protect him. Li eventually attacks Rigard's golem for not allowing her to capture Harder earlier, but he does not give up. With the number of shots she fired, Li thought that Rigard's golem would have been destroyed, but he rises slowly from the attack, broken but still standing. Li vows to go after Rigard's golem till it is down to pieces. Rigard uses the minimal knowledge he has to control the golem. At first, he tries to back away and run, but after seeing that the Athenian golem will not back away, he engages her. Li violently targets Ryart and shoots rapidly at him, but it does not hold him back. Rather, Rigard is more determined to stop Li from proceeding. Rygar dives into the air, and Li notices that his height and his ability to dive as high as he has done is unusual. Earlier, the Queen tried to intervene and shield Rigard to safety. She leaves the comfort of the palace to stage a rescue, but now she stands at a distance to observe the action. Rygar dives into Li and shoves her violently, and both golems began to fight. Rigard's golem refuses to go down regardless of its bad shape, and Li was running out of armor. Li retreats to a safe distance because Rigard's golem has taken Li's arm. She attacks from a distance and continues to shoot. Rygar checks his golem and sees that he has only a few minutes left, so he turns back and decides to run away from Li, but she continues in hot pursuit. Another Krishna golem arrives and attempts to kill Li on General Balder's orders to save him, but Rigard tries to make her surrender. Instead of surrendering to them, Li shoots herself to retain her honor. Zess notices that his subordinates no longer complain, and he tells his men to fall back and defend themselves from a safe place. He terribly regrets losing Li because he let Rigard get away. At the palace, King Hodor tells General Balder that he is ready to surrender to the Athenians, but the general asks him to let them continue fighting because his soldiers can still go on. As they discussed, Rigard hangs out on the balcony where he feels bad about the situation at the battlefield. Queen Sai meets up with him, but he refuses to hear her out and leaves her. Zess and Erect, another subordinate, discuss Li and Cleo on their nightly scouting, and Zess tells him about his regret, but Erect tells him that Li understood what it means to be a soldier. Zess tells him that Cleo took the death so hard because she is from the same school as Li and she has been a great influence on Cleo's life. Zess sees the need to protect the two girls because he has a little daughter at home whom he thinks about each time he sees them. Zess talks into the night with Erect, refusing to take or allow any consolation that the older man offered him. The next morning, Regard packs his belongings and leaves the palace because he feels he is of no use to the royal family. Queen Sigyn bids him farewell and refuses to stop him. She is only glad that she can see him again before facing her death. Regard goes to the cemetery to pay his last respects to Dan, the golem soldier that saved him from Li. There, General Balder meets him and pleads with him to remain with them and let Queen Sigyn help him fix the ancient golem, but Rigert refuses. On his way, King Hodor meets him and tells him that he would have told him of his departure. King Hodor tells Rigert that he is in no way faulting him for leaving and apologizes for bringing him into the mix. He gives Rigert a parting gift and bids him farewell. Rigert knows that they will never see each other and turns to leave, but he is unable to do so. Rather, he turns his back towards home after a long thought and looks at King Hodor. General Borcuse enjoys an instrumental rendition from his daughter Lita. He praises her for a good performance, and the maid informs them that they have a visitor. Lita sees that a colonel is around to visit her father, and she conveys the message. At the table, the colonel tells General Borcuse that he has been reinstated to take control of the Christmas subjugation force after the war secretary intervened for him in court. General Borcuse accepts his orders and immediately follows the colonel, which does not please Lita. The general vows to return from battle as he has always done in time for Lita's recital and leaves with the squad. As they move, the colonel gives General Borcuse the situation report and they head out to join the general's unit. Long ago in school, one day, Zess and Rigert were hanging out under a tree and Zess refuses to help Rigert climb the tree to save a bird. Hodor helps Rigert to climb the tree and Zess introduces him as the heir to the throne. From then onward, Hodor becomes friends with the duo. Rigert thinks of that scenario as he swears his oath to join the armed forces of the Krishna army. After the oath, King Hodor steps down from his throne to present Rigert's sword to him, and they exchange friendly banter with each other. Rigert's ancient golem was redone at the workshop and named Delphine. He vows to protect Hodor's kingdom from Zess and his men. At his base, Zess thinks of Hodor and silently laments over the fact that he has refused to surrender, knowing the strength that the Athenian army possesses. Cleo wakes up from sleep and she vows to Zess that she is going to kill the Krishna golem and gain justice over Li and save Athens from Krishna. Li has always told Cleo not to take her emotions into battle, but this time around she was fully ready to be emotional. Erect informs Zess that they have ammunition left for one more battle, and they lay out their strategies for the attack. At the Krishna camp, Queen Sigyn gives Rigert instructions about Delphine and Rigert speaks to her with renewed morale about the battle. She asks if he thinks he can fight Zess, and he tells her that Zess has remained unbeaten from school days. Before proceeding, General Balder tells Rigert that he should aim to kill, rather than force the enemy soldier to surrender. General Balder takes off for the battleground and Rigert follows right after him on Queen Sigyn's watch. General Balder plans for his unit to make a surprise attack, so each golem in that squad is shrouded with a cover. But as Zess arrives with his unit, he scouts the area with his binoculars and sees Balder's squad. He informs his people to retreat because they are outnumbered, but Balder's squad goes after them. Zess tells Erect and Cleo to retreat so that he will buy them time. He begins to take out Balder's men swiftly, and they all alert each other that the killer golem has arrived. Almost immediately, the Krishna golems begin to drop from his attack, but he does not stop. He goes after them till his squad is able to get away, and he retreats with them. The Athenian soldiers arrive at a safe distance away from the Krishna army, and Zess gives them instructions. Just as they were trying to move on, Delphine arrives with an incredible speed and scatters one of the Athen golems right in front of them. Zess tells his people to defend, but the strength and skills of Delphine are almost too much for them. Zess slows down on his skills when he discovers that it is Rigert, and they both go at each other. Rigert goes after Zess with his swords as the Athenian squad watches them while Zess tries to shoot it out with him, but Delphine's armor resists his shooting. Rigert slashes Zess's golem on the chest and it goes down. Rigert shouts for Zess in a loud voice after realizing what he has done, but Zess' golem remains unmoving and shows no sign of standing up. Erect orders Cleo to retreat to the border alone as he sees a unit of Krishna golems running towards them, but Cleo thinks of all the people she has lost during the battle and defies the orders. She goes after Ziggurat from behind and she has him to her advantage since he is unaware that she was coming for him. Cleo kicks Delphine and he falls to the ground unconscious. General Balder instructs the squad to approach with caution for Rigert's sake while engaging the Athenian unit, which is now down to 2. Erect knows that regardless of Cleo's foolishness, he must help her, so after going back and forth with her and she refuses his order over and over again, he descends to the ground to help her. Cleo becomes a terror in the midst of General Balder's squad as she destroys the unit with vengeance. She hacks off some of the guys and destroys the golems as she fights through them. Behind her, Erect tries to rescue Zess from his golem without hurting him and gently begins to remove the armor from his body. Though Zess is bleeding, Erect sees that he is still alive, which serves as consolation for him. He gently retrieves Zess and communicates to Cleo to retreat because he has retrieved their captain. General Balder shouts at his men because they are scared of a single Athenian golem, and he attacks her. He uses his shield as protection against her sword and fights back. At Erect's instruction, Cleo retreats from the fight and runs off, but General Balder and his men follow in hot pursuit. Cleo directs her golem strongly, and just when she was about to be successful, General True's squad appears over a cliff, and they shoot Cleo's golem in the leg. Cleo begs Erect to save Zess, and she resigns to her fate. The squad rescues Rigert from his golem, and General Balder tells him that General Borkius is on his way, which means that they have just begun. They take Cleo with them back to the palace in chains as she looks at Rigert with hate for killing her companions. General Borkius holds a conference on the trip to fight the Krishna forces, and he learns that their wells of quartz are almost dry, therefore they must do what it takes to reinforce themselves. He makes a vow not to let his people down, as well as the entire continent. At the Krishna Palace, the soldiers are not used to dealing with prisoners, so Balder asks for the input of General True's unit since they were key in capturing Cleo, but they refuse to participate. Queen Sigyn asks for an opportunity to interrogate the prisoner so that she will not commit suicide, and Balder agrees. On the way to Sigyn's chamber, Cleo vows for herself that she will say nothing, but inside the chamber, Sigyn treats her so well that she begins to warm up to her. Cleo draws a close and overpowers Sigyn. She snatches Sigyn's weapon and robes and tries to make a run for it, but as she tries to shoot Rigert, she discovers that the hun is empty and the soldiers caught up with her. Erect treats Zess' wounds to the best of his abilities as a former war medic and tells Zess that when they get home he will get more sophisticated treatment. Zess asks about Cleo, but Erect regrettably tells him that he was unable to acquire her status before leaving. Zigert goes for practice with Narvi, one of General True's soldiers, and she gets annoyed at his nonchalance, but she is unable to do anything about it. Back in the palace, Cleo is left alone in the queen's room and she wanders around to see the transparent windows controlled by quartz. Queen Sigyn enters the room with a food cart and Cleo asks why she is still in the queen's room after her earlier attempt, but Sigyn only asks her if she will prefer the dungeon. Before serving their food, Sigyn warns Cleo not to threaten Zigert's life again because she will not be forgiven. General True's squad prepares for battle with his instructions, but Narvi notices that she is unassigned and she becomes angry that General True will leave her out of the action since she is most efficient. Queen Sigyn meets with Narvi, Rigert, and some other soldiers, and she explains the new mission to them. Narvi would lead the team of 5 on issues of national security under the control of the king. In her squad are Rigert, Niall, Logan, and the troublesome Gurg, which the queen is not too happy about. Everyone is weary of Gurg's personality because he behaves wildly and almost as if he has mental problems. During training, he behaves like a threat to his fellow soldiers and sometimes kills them. General Balder meets with Rigert and tells him to kill Jurvi if he finds him suspicious because he was once a bad prisoner. Rigert finds out from the conversation that Jurvi is General Balder's son, and he opposes the idea of killing him because nobody should ask for the death of their child. He tells General Balder to kill Jurg himself if he wants him dead. Before leaving, he tells the old man to remain alive and leaves him. General True and his unit leave for their position, and General Balder equally leads his unit out. The king bids them farewell, and Narvi cautions General True. Later, Narvi and the other members of her squad train Rigart on the use of arms in combat. Narvi commands them with a megaphone while they instructed Rigart on what to do. The day before his unit heads out, Rigart makes King Hodor promise that he will not surrender until he comes back and tells Hodor not to worry about him. That morning, Queen Sigyn remains restless as she remembers their time in school and heads to Rigart's quarters. She tells Rigart to return unharmed so that she will stop being upset, and he agrees. General True's squad is ambushed by the Athenian soldiers, and the squad's members are nearly completely annihilated. General True dies during battle, and his squad returns to regroup. With the news of the ambush, all the units regroup and head out, including Narmi's squad. Rigart remains resolute in his decisions as they move for battle. King Hodor and Queen Sigyn watch their squad proceed for battle on their balcony with evident worry in their gestures. The Athenian squad that took out General True's squad are resting after that attack. The soldiers banter among themselves and recount stories from the battlefront. The colonel arrives, and one of the soldiers asks him if it is safe for them to rest within the enemy's territory. He assures them that General Borkius and his squad will look out for them while they take a 4 hours rest because they have been active for 25 hours. The squad relax at this news to use the time they have been allotted to rest. General Borkius and his unit sighted General Balder and his men at the same time they were sighted, and they opened fire on each other. Also, one of the captains under General Balder asks permission to engage in close contact with 20 men, and General Balder permits her. But what started out as a calculated step becomes a terrible mistake as General Borcuse decides to overpower General Balder's unit with fear. Before their eyes, with 6 of his squad members, he defeats Captain Elsa and her 20-man squad to impact fear in the other men, and it worked. General Balder realizes General Borcuse's gamble, which he played right into when it has all played out, and he bowed his head at that sign of defeat. But General Borcuse instructs his people to charge over the remains of Captain Elsa and her people, which fueled the fear in Balder into rage. He rallied his men with that rage, and as a unit, their fear turned into pure rage for revenge. The squad take on the Athenian soldiers as a unit, and even Borcuse understood at that point that the fear he tried to impact has transformed into rage. He instructs his squad to return fire, and they do that without hesitation. General Balder continues to issue stern commands to all units of his squad to keep them going, and they continue to charge at the Athenian soldiers. As the battle continued, Rhaegar suddenly emerges and began to violently destroy the Athenian golems as a single attacker. He takes down a part of their unit to buy time for Balder's squad while they await the arrival of Narvi and the others. General Borcuse's men try to regroup while the general tries to recover from the surprise that Krishna attacked them within that single golem. Balder retreats Rhaegar because his armor grew thin and they began to draw into the enemy. At the time that Narvi is supposed to attack with her team, Gur becomes scared because he has never fought in a real battle, and he remains unmoving. While the others try to get him to move, the enemy discovers their position and they move without him. Balder's team tries to draw General Borcuse and his people out by retreating, but Borcuse understands, and he orders his people on what to do. The remaining members of General True's squad join the pursuit team, but Rhaegar stands back. During his briefing with Queen Sigyn, she had given him a set of rules to follow, considering that when engaging the enemy, Delphin has a time that it can work for. Rhaegar stands back within the rocks and sees that one of the Athenian soldiers is retreating, and he almost feels relief. General Borcuse's soldiers engaged in a strategic retreat to attack from another position. As they moved, one of the soldiers calls out their ploy, and a banter began. Just then, they run into Gur, who takes the opportunity and begins to fight them. He takes out one of the soldiers, and the others come at him heavily. Jurga fights in the midst of the soldiers, even though he is clearly outnumbered. From his position, Rhaegar is down to a minute in his golem, but he sees Gur in a serious battle with Borcuse and his unit. When they were safe, Narvi asks Gur to give a report, and he vaguely talks to her. He tells her that he recovered himself and wandered about, but the enemies attacked him. Narvi counters his report by telling him that Rhaegar saw him destroy 7 golems, partially destroyed 2 officers' units, and crippled another, but Gur says nothing much in his defense. Narvi gets frustrated with him and forbids him from carrying firearms or approaching a golem without her approval. Another soldier tells Narvi that they need Gurg's input in fixing his Artemis, and he is led away. General Balder hangs out with Rhaegar and tells him Gurg's story over a drink. Later, General Balder meets up with the remaining soldiers from General True's squad and asks Captain Niall if they should tell Narvi about the death of General True. They debate on whether it will be a hindrance to the mission. It comes down to 2 options: to tell her and let Niall take over as captain, or leave her in the dark. The Athenian soldiers admit that they were resoundingly defeated by the Krishna soldiers, and if not for Colonel Lowe's assistance, General Balder would have been in danger. The head of the unit submits their situation report to the colonel, and they discover that they have 60% of their soldiers remaining. Angrily, some of the soldiers declare their vengeance against the Krishna soldiers, and they vow to kill every one of them. Their leaders conclude that the battle has been a draw, but the Krishna soldiers were not to be taken for granted, especially with the presence of the 2 powerful golems with them. General Borcuse retreats to his tent for the day and talks to himself about the excitement of the battle they have just faced against the Krishna soldiers. He admits to himself that he is curious about the 2 distinct golems they used as the others continue to deliberate outside. At the Krishna camp, Narvi retracts her orders against Gurg and permits him to use his Artemis, but he must await her approval to go further. As they prepare to hit the road, one of the soldiers reports that General Borcuse is on his way to a small village, and Rhaegar becomes alarmed because his brother lives close to the place. Narvi tells him that she will send word to General Balder to evacuate the area, but Rhaegar is barely listening. He turns and hurriedly mounts Delphine and flies off. Rhaegar arrives at his little village and shouts for his brother, but he does not get any response. He checks around and sees the body of the villagers. He realized that he was too late and prepared for an attack as Borcuse and his soldiers arrive. The men began to engage Rhaegar, but General Borcuse commands them to stand down and tells them that if anyone should engage, they will be executed. The general uses his experience to overpower Rhaegar, and they tackle one another. Soon, General Borcuse overpowers Rhaegar, and he instructs his men to restrain the golem, take out the soldier inside, and kill him. Colonel Lowe catches up with General Borcuse and chastises him for always charging off alone. Borcuse tells him that he wanted to know what Delphine was made of, and the only way to achieve it is by facing it alone. The Krishna soldiers arrive late, and they are unable to engage and save Rhaegar. Back in the palace, Queen Saigon tells Cleo stories about Hodder, Regart, and Zest from their school days. Regart regains consciousness and Narvi took the cue. They began to fire at the Athenian squad and Regart flies away from them to his very angry squad, but another Athenian squad ambushes them and they began to fight again. King Hodder holds a meeting with his council members to decide their fate and review the effort they have made so far. According to the report, they have successfully evacuated 80% of the citizens, and if they are suddenly attacked, the remaining 20% can be sheltered in the castle. King Hodder warily listens to them and flips through the reports, but his mind is already made up because people including General True died for him, and he felt responsible. One of the council members tells Hodder that they must fight to preserve the independence they gained 80 years ago and tries to encourage Hodder. Just then, the messenger comes to report that a massive troop of Athenian army is advancing towards them, and Hodder instructs that the evacuation of citizens should be hastened. The messenger reports that Regart has gone to protect his brother, and Hodder becomes angry that he failed to protect Regart's brother. General Balder, who is eavesdropping at the door, slowly retreats and moves away. Meanwhile, Narvi and her squad are under siege by the remaining members of General Burkos' unit. While she tries to fend off their attack but fails miserably because of their considerable strength, Gerg and Regart are in a silly contest with one another. Instead of joining their unit to defend themselves, Gerg accuses Regart of being his kind of person who lives to take advantage of others. He tells Regart that he caused the death of people in their unit because of his sentimental decision to save his brother. But Gerby tells him not to feel any remorse for the dead because they are weak for dying. With these words, Regart remembers all the people that have died in battle because they were trying to protect him, and he starts to fight Gerg. Gerby taunts Regart with hurtful accusations to reel him up because he is enjoying the exchange. The Athenian golem fighting Narvi gains the upper hand, and she manages to escape from her golem to hide before it was destroyed. Gerg and Regart continue to fight, with both words and actions. Gerby thinks that Regart is pretentious for acting the way he does when everyone in the palace knows that there is something between him and the beautiful Queen Sigyn. This gets at Regart, and Gerg promises to fulfill his wishes if he can win their fight. Regart is determined to win to prove a point, and he tells Gerg that if he is able to surpass his power and win him, he would like Gerg to stop being a villain and get useful with his strength by becoming a general and surpassing his father. The two men ruthlessly fight against each other, but just then, a golem from the enemy appears to fight them, and Gerg begins to defend the both of them. Even after defeating the golem, a unit of Athenian soldiers appear with General Burkos, but Regart is unable to escape as they come at them because Delphine's system is shutting down. When Gerg sees that they were fully surrounded, he gives Delphine a heavy kick and it tumbles over the cliff. Regart tries to regain control and he holds the edge of the cliff while begging Gerg to run away with him, but his pleas fall on deaf ears. Gerg turns to the Athenian soldiers and begins to destroy them with a few shots of each golem. General Bades, one of the top soldiers of the Athenian army, tells Gerg to dump the Krishna side and join them because Athens is better deserving of his skills, but he declines. Gerg kills Bades and more Athenian soldiers pour on him. He steps out from his destroyed golem and refuses to run even though he is well surrounded. Regart continues to hang on the cliff with his hand, but he comes in and out of consciousness. He envisions his father and their trips to the city market together and some of his fondest memories. The sound of General Balder's voice brings him back to consciousness as he tries to wake him and get them to run. All around Krishna's capital, generals shout instructions to their units and they rally people to safety as much as possible. They command some soldiers to look after the castle and protect the king while they try to do damage control outside. General Balder instructs some of his men to cover them while they try to escape and not get caught. In the palace, the guards search for King Hodder, but he is nowhere to be found. Hodder stands on a wheeling podium on his balcony and takes in all that is happening within his kingdom in a solemn and unhurried manner. Colonel Lowe has Gerg in chains and tells him that he regrets having such a skilled man at Krishna's disposal whom he will never be able to cross swords with again. He asks Gerg why Krishna will put a highly skilled golem in the hands of an incompetent person like Regart, and Gerby tells him that it is because he is an idiot. Without another word, Colonel Lowe shoots Gerg and he falls to the ground, with blood dripping from the side of his face. One of his soldiers arrived to report at the exact moment that Cleo has been held prisoner by Krishna for some time. Colonel Lowe tells the soldier that he has neither the right nor reason to stop the other soldiers from rescuing Cleo, and the soldier vows to return with Cleo and defeat those holding her hostage. General Burkos instructs his squad to head, and they all fall in line according to the plan for the attack. In a safe place, Regart debriefs General Balder on what happened to Gerg and him before he was captured. He requests for Narvi and his other squad mates, and General Balder tells him that they found them after finding him. Somehow, Narvi, Niall, and Loggins have made it out alive but tattered. She gives the men instructions and they begin to head towards home through an alternative route. Balder tells Regart that they may not make it to the capital before Borcuse and his men, and Regart tells Balder to drop him under a rock and continue. Sigyn remains busy in the workshop while King Hodder draws strategy with his council, but he is worried about the safety of his people. General Bocuse and his unit of 90 soldiers head towards the Krishna city gates, and he tells Colonel Lo to invite them in. The unit of 90 soldiers breaks into groups to conquer the city from different positions, but Balder orders his men to do whatever they can to ensure that the Athenians do not get past their gates. The soldiers engaged the fearsome Athenians bravely and defended their city gates with all their might, using foot soldiers and snipers in as many positions as they could manage. Bocuse continues to give instructions to his men in the midst of the battle, and they followed accordingly. Inside the castle, Cleo sees her people advancing and she prepares to run out. Sigyn enters the room to carry ligaments for the special equipment she is working on that can only be used by Rigert. She hugs Cleo goodbye and lets her go, and she returns to her work and hopes that Rigert will make it home. Rigert propels Delphine into action and slowly begins to make his way home to the city. Colonel Lo coordinates his unit towards the gate that they were trying to breach. While some were firing at Narvi, Niall, and Logan, who had just arrived, he orders Leto to cover him as he tries to make the entrance. All around, bullets fly about from one end to the other, as each side of the battle tries to gain considerable ground over another. Bocuse equally leads his unit towards another side of the city to breach and enter. From behind, Delphine attacks him with surprise, and he turns to begin to fend off the attack. Rigart breaks through Borcuse's soldiers and heads for Borcuse. General Borcuse tells him that he has never seen him fire a pressure gun, which makes him wonder if it is the way his golem is built or if it is due to the incompetence of Rigart, the pilot. Rigart says nothing in response and keeps fighting, but Borcuse did not engage him because he does not have the intention of fighting unarmed. Instead, he tells Rigart that he will get his answer after taking the palace. General Borcuse does not feel threatened by Rigart and his unusual golem. He is rather amused and curious about it. As Rigart continues the attack, Borcuse notes that his observation was correct. Apparently, the golem that he and his nation are so perplexed about is not controlled by the expertise of its pilot. Rigart is at a loss on what to do with the loudmouthed general who does not seem to be bothered by him. Rather, Bocuse continues his dissection of Rigart and Delphine's abilities. Bocuse thinks that Delphine and his pilot are foreign to him and his people, which makes them even more exciting. Rigart attacks him again and Borcuse throws him off because he does not know how to fight. But Rigart bounces back almost immediately and throws Borcuse's weapon off. Bocuse wonders why Rigart is yet to pick up the weapon to finish him or at least try to manipulate it, and he figures that Rigart must be one of the rare people who are powerless amongst them. Meanwhile, the soldiers begin to report that some of the gates have been breached by the enemies. Cleo comes out of her hideout, and after Colonel Lo identifies her, she hops into his golem. As they begin to move, Narvi attacks them with his unit and vows that they will not get past her. Queen Sigyn completes the new equipment for Rigart's use and takes it to him on the battle equals ground. There, Bocuse laughs in astonishment and exclaims that the weapon is fitting for Rigart's kind. The guards forcefully pull Queen Sigyn into the gates and take her to the safety of the castle against her wish. Rigart continues to fight with General Borcuse, who tries to figure out the new weapon at Rigart's disposal to fight him. Bocuse wishes to destroy the golem and see the person fighting him. He crushes Delphine to the ground and begins to attack, but he escapes again. Hodder comes out into the open to watch Rigart, and all attempts to get him into the secured castle become futile because he feels responsible for persuading Rigart, an unsorcerer, to fight. Everyone comes to a standstill as they watch Rigart kill General Borcuse to end their fight. His soldiers make a temporary retreat, and before midday, the news of Borcuse's death reaches Secretary Loquis. Zess receives news that Cleo was seen alive escaping on a vessel, and with his injured leg, he tries to rally a search party for her. Narvi finally receives news that General True is dead, and she attempts to harm herself, but Logan knocks her out. Rigart is rescued and received by King Hodder and Queen Sigyn, and is encouraged, but he knows that all is not over because Zess will show up, and they will have to fight each other. Just then, his brother, Rigars, comes to him and tells him that he has been searching for him to no avail. But he is shocked that Rigart was the person piloting Delphine. After accusing his brother, he runs away and Rigart began to laugh non-stop. If you like this recap, do let me know in the comments and obviously leave your like too. Do not forget to share with your friends and subscribe. Above all, activate your notification bell so you don't miss the next recap when it drops. Until next time, do take care and stay safe.